Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Friday, finally, right? End of the work week for many of you. But today is March 28th. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I thought we'd talk about pricing strategies, and I'll get more into it, so stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, today is Friday, March 28th. This is the weekday, Monday through Friday. And we basically talk business. So, what do I mean by talking pricing strategies? I'm a firm believer in that you can price yourself right out of the market. It's one thing to say that you're making $100 an hour or $105 an hour, but if the market dictates 55, you may need to be 55. If it's 30, you may have to be at 30. It all depends on location and where you're at. And the other thing that I look at too is when I'm developing a pricing strategy for the business from year to year, and it is year to year. Many say, well, no, it should be the same straight through. That's not the case. Because pricing strategy also has to take into account the cost of parts, right? The cost of parts just to do a regular service on what have you, on a lawnmower, on rototiller, what have you. If those prices go up, that means the costs go up, and that means your pricing strategy is going to have to be, do we absorb the increase, which we've done in the past, or do we pass it on to the customer? And by passing it on to the customer, where are you on that timeline of there's a happy medium with customers? If you can keep it below X number of dollars, you're going to get their business. But after it reaches a certain number, they start thinking about either skipping it all entirely or doing it themselves. And the two latter mean you're not going to get the work that you would normally get. I get this all the time, Eric, what should I ask for per hour? And that's a hard question to answer without knowing a lot about what's going on in your area. And what the median price is for families of what they're making per year. I mean, if you're dealing in a more affluent neighborhood where people have got over $100,000 a year jobs, yeah, you can get away with charging a little bit more an hour and staying busy, right? Because they don't want to get their hands dirty. But most of those guys now have gone to landscape guys that do their lawns for them. So it still comes back to, well, how much do I charge an hour? You charge what you can and still get the most amount of work. How do I know if it's working or not? Well, if you're staying busy all the time, it's working. But if you're only getting a machine here and there and it's crickets in between, your pricing is probably too high. And I know there's a big debate out there that says if you're too cheap, you'll stay busy, but you won't make squat. It's better to have two jobs and make $100 than it is 10 jobs and make $100. And I can agree with that philosophy. But there's two things that I want going on in my shop. I want it to be to at least make a living, and I would like to stay somewhat busy. Sometimes you can't have both in the same time zone, right? So, what are some of the things that are going to cause you to have issues when it comes to pricing? Some things we just do not have control in, and that is the cost of parts, replacement parts. Even doing a simple service on somebody's machine, if you're talking to Ryder, you're still looking at an oil filter, fuel filter, spark plugs, air filter if it needs it, cleaning it out, more blades, but all that stuff costs money. And what I see is the distributors every year are jacking that price up. And one of the things that I noticed yesterday that really got jacked up was the price of mower blades from one distributor. We normally sell our mower blades for $12 a piece right straight through on average. But yesterday when I went to check to see if we had any blades in for a mower that we were doing, and we didn't, so I went to one of our distributors' website and punched in the number, and it's $13.85 is our cost per blade. You can't sell too many at $12 and take that $1.85 a hit every time you turn around. And they show list price on it is $30. I understand that if they went to most other retailers, they're going to pay right around $30. So how do we price it so we're still staying the margins? I told Claude we need to be up around 18, 20 this year, on average. You want to do 20 right across the board, it's going to cost $40 for any mower that comes in with 2 blades. That we do an average of. Unless it's a mower blade that is special, that hasn't been out long and the prices are still way up on it. So trying to price a service, because I've seen other places do it, like the local John Deere dealership, has different levels and what they include. And each level includes a spark plug or plugs, oil filter if they have an oil filter on them, fuel filter if they have a fuel filter on them, and checking the air breather and replacing it if need be. And here is the amount. And then they have down here in the lower corner with an asterisk of saying plus parts. See, they're averaging out what it costs to do it, how much time is spent doing that mower. And the thing is the John Deere dealership, they've hired someone to actually go out and do on-site services. And the only way that would work is if you knew ahead of time what more that customer had so that you could have extra blades, belts, and all that in stock on the trailer just in case. Because if you're going out to do a service on it and it needs blades, that means you got to go all the way back to the shop, right? But if you had them on board and it needed it, you could replace them. If it just needed touching up, you could take, a grinder and hit them with it quick. But I know customers like to hear, what is it going to be my cost? And I think for most part, their average service is under $300. So when we're trying to come up with a pricing strategy, we have to take into consideration a few things, right? Location, how much we're going to charge an hour, and then the cost of the parts. All three of those play a vital role in deciding what is the dollar amount for outcome. And there's no reason that many of us can't sit down and say, okay, we know how much time it takes to do a 0 turn on average, all right? Front to back. And that includes sharpening the blades. So if we figure it takes 2 hours to get that through the shop, we can make a judgment call at that point if we're charging $50 an hour and it takes 2 hours, there's $100 in labor plus parts. So you could say an average service for a rider is $100 plus parts. You could also take it a step further and say that the average zero turn that comes through, we know what the cost of the twin cylinder 2 plugs, the fuel filter, the oil filter on most of them. The only one that's kind of out there in the open is the air filter. I've seen the air filter get changed a lot as far as pricing. Whether it's a Briggs to a Kohler, there's a big difference. And aftermarket and OEMs, depending on what the customer wants, right? And as I was saying, blades have gone up considerably. So we can write it out and figure out what it costs to have a service less the air filter and mower blades. So if you took all that into consideration, your 2 hours plus the known parts, you could come up with, let's say, 150 for an average service. Does not include air filter and mower blades, because those seem to be, on our part, those seem to be the most varied things. The other thing with a John Deere, the riders, what we're seeing now is I don't know what they call them, no change oil filters or whatever, but it's all self-contained, and you take it off, you get rid of it, and you put the other one on, and it goes by hours, not by seasons. And they can get pricey. So you're going to have exceptions to every rule, and the exception with John Deere riders with the OEM filters, and that's all you can use right now on those, can run $30-40. So there's always going to be that one mower that doesn't fit with the bunch. The costs are going to be higher. But if you're doing 100 zero turns a year, you got a pretty good idea of what it costs to get that machine in and out. Your labor cost, your parts cost, and you can do an average. Because your pricing strategy, if you're charging $100 an hour and you charge an hour's labor on the push mower plus parts, and you put a new blade on it, you do an oil change on it, new spark plug, new little fuel filter, and you're up around $150, a lot of customers are going to give you a dirty look. Because now you're up around the cost, not much more, you could buy a brand new one. And that's why we call it the throwaway generation. Let me know in the comments what you think, as far as your pricing strategy in your area. Can you do it? Are you doing it? And how is it working? So on that note, you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. And we'll get right back here Monday morning for the weekday.